where did the name come up? Like, would you come up with it? What does the marketing stand for? And why did you decide to get in the business? What was that start look like for you?
Wow, this is kind of a long story, but it all started with a trademark infringement lawsuit back in 2000 and I think it was 2010. I did a little bit of a brainstorming session with the guys. We sat down and kind of started to think about what a good name would be over a dinner session, and it was during the Game of Thrones kind of era when it was just starting out. So
Did you know how to build a business? Did you have like a mentor? Is this something that you learned as you kind of went along? Like, what did that look like? Were you just like, I'm just going to start plumbing and kind of threw your name into the ring?
there was lawsuits. There was a lot of trial and error. And to be honest, I guess it's, they say it's the best way to learn. But if I had a mentor, I could have skipped probably a lot of the crap and ended up there a little bit quicker, I could say.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Superpro podcast. I'm Roland Ligtenberg. I'm the co-founder of Housecall Pro, and since 2013, we've been on a mission to champion the trades and champion our pros because the work you all do keeps our homes safe, comfortable, and communities running. Through Housecall Pro, I've had the privilege of supporting hundreds of thousands of pros just like you, empowering you all to achieve more, stress less, and redefine success in our industry. Today, I'm super excited. We've got Trevor Whitcomb here with Lords of Plumbing. We're going to talk all about that name. They are based out of LA, sunny LA, California. His business is about a $2 million a year business for 2025 with just 9 employees and 7 trucks on the road. So we're going to learn a lot from Trevor. He's a serial entrepreneur. He's done a lot of different stuff, whether it's green energy, MMA stuff. But at the heart of it all, and we'll talk about it too, is plumbing. Trevor, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here. Yeah.
All right, Lords of Plumbing. Where did the name come up? Like, would you come up with it? What does the marketing stand for? And why did you decide to get in the business? What was that start look like for you?
Wow. This is kind of a long story, but it all started with a trademark infringement lawsuit back in 2000 and I think it was 2010. Yeah, we were once named Honest Plumbing, and come to find out there was another Honest Plumbing in the Los Angeles area, and got served with the lawsuit that ended up forcing us to change our name to Lords of Plumbing. We actually I did a little bit of a brainstorming session with the guys. We sat down and kind of started to think about what a good name would be over a dinner session, and it was during the Game of Thrones kind of era when it was just starting out. So we were all really pumped on kings and queens and feudalism and stuff. So I started going lords of this, and it's like Lords of Plum, kings of this, and so we just kind of came up with it, and it was a great pivot. We ended up it worked for us. We didn't lose a beat when we changed our name. We continued with the fundamental idea that we had with the business. So
That's good. And I mean, sometimes, people pick, names that are similar to others and they're forced to change their names. But, coming up with something like this that's marketable, it's catchy. There's so many cool like branding things you can do with it and like with your mission, and it all lines up pretty well. You've been in LA now for a while. What was that? I mean, you grew up in Boston, so you went East Coast to West Coast. What made you make the switch, and why were you like, all right, I did plumbing on the East Coast, now we're going to do it on the West Coast?
Well, I think I was chasing those 80s dreams, like the surfing, the lifestyle, and I think that's what kind of brought me to the West Coast and I moved when I was really young. I actually moved when I was 18. And I'd already been plumbing for many years actually, probably before now kids are allowed to work, but I was working, me and a guy in a single truck, and when I moved to LA, it was literally just, I was just so like, oh man, I want to surf. I want to be on the beach. And there I was. I landed in Venice Beach, California, and I was in the deep water at that point. So I had to figure out a way to survive. And And plumbing was still there, which was great. So I
Mhm.
just went right back into what I knew how to do, and it helped support my lifestyle.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so building a business, did that come naturally to you? Did you know how to build a business? Did you have like a mentor? Is this something that you learned as you kind of went along? Like, what did that look like? Were you just like, I'm just going to start plumbing and kind of threw your name into the ring?
Yeah, it was a lot of horrible mistakes along the way. And there was no um even the stuff I thought I knew, I realized I didn't know at all until yeah, I mean there was lawsuits, there was a lot of trial and error. And to be honest, I guess it's, they say it's the best way to learn, but if I had a mentor, I could have skipped probably a lot of the crap and ended up there a little bit quicker, I could say.
Mhm. Mhm.
It was a lot. It was a lot. It was hard to figure out how to navigate the business side. I got the plumbing down quick, and
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of guys do. They get the plumbing down quick, and then I'm like, okay, well, that's step one. Here comes the 90% of the rest of your business is going to be how to operate it. So that was difficult for sure. Still learning. Hasn't
Yes.
stopped.
I'm glad you said still learning because I feel like for everyone, it's going to be continual learning process. And the second that you actually think you've got it figured out, you definitely don't. That's a bad sign.
Yeah,
You'll never have it completely figured out.
exactly. Right.
You've had some good people work for you for many many years. What's been
Oh
kind of your
yeah.
secret to finding great employees that are like bought into the mission that show up day in day night? Like how do
Yeah.
you do that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the hardest things for a service business, especially, is you have to bring people in that have I think it's like the fundamentals of being a good employee. Like you're like, okay, well, they seem to kind of have their lives together. They got the time thing down. They have an idea of why they're here and what they're doing. And then I realized you kind of got to turn into a little bit of a teacher, and you have to take them, and you have to teach them some of those life skills that they may be missing. And you have to
Hmm.
say, hey, here's how to manage your money, because you don't want employees who are broke, and you don't want employees, some people say, yeah, you do. You want them to be hungry. Yeah, but if you really want to have a good company, I feel like you have to have a funnel for them to, you have to have a funnel for them to make more money. You have to show them that there's something greater that they're investing into. Then they'll
Yeah.
continue to grow with the company. If they see it's like, oh, I'm going to become a master plumber, or I'm going to become a C-level employee, and that's it. My job is done. Then they'll get bored, they'll get burnt out, they won't have any interest. So I try to keep it always changing, always something there for them to grab a goal. And I
Hmm.
feel like that really helps retain those employees, is to just keep it dynamic, and not let it get stale. If you let it get stale, they're gonna leave.
Yeah. What kind of things are you doing to keep it dynamic? What do you do for
Yeah,
do you do like employee appreciation days
yeah,
or do you do like prizes, giveaways? What do you do? Competitions? What do you do?
yeah. I keep it mainly monetary. I realize money is the greatest motivator. I've tried a lot of the other. Yeah, I've tried giving away trips, and um, you know, we have an interesting sales structure, so I don't really have we don't have like a sales tier where if they sell X amount, they can do this. But, I was like giving my higher salespeople, um, perks and bonuses and all this stuff. I just
Hmm.
realized that the money and the income is huge, especially in, major metropolitan areas. If I can say,
Right.
hey, this is our target. We sit down and we do what's called GSRs, goal set and review meetings, where we sit down and we set their goals. I do it with them so that they're involved with it. And I say, hey, what is your goal? Do you want to buy a house? And the motivation
Mm.
is to get to those. It like really crosses over with life. So I feel like if I can get them, motivated through a life goal, it really resonates. They're going to be like, okay, I really want to. okay, I have a, a 16-year-old child, and they're going to be going off to college, and I really want to make sure I have the money for them to go wherever they want. And I'm like, okay, well,
Mhm.
this is our goal. Um, but home buying is probably one of the pinnacle goals, I call it. It's like
Yeah.
you sit down long enough and they say, I want to buy a house. Even if I have a 19-year-old kid, they're like, I want to buy a house. And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, well, let's do it. And
Yeah.
that's the mentality I take with them. I'm like, let's do it. If you want to put the work in, I'll help you get there. And, I use my own resources, which is good. Like I use my success and the people that I've met outside of the plumbing or outside of the service, for some of
Mhm.
my real estate ventures and, finance people. And I say, hey, when we get you to a point where I think you're ready to launch, I'm going to introduce you to this guy and he's going to take
Mm.
you the rest of the way. So,
Mhm.
leveraging my own stuff for my employees it's like a double. I get the loyalty, I get to pass them to these great people. They get their house. It's this stacking system
Just
that works really good.
It just works. I mean, just in that last little snippet, there's so many golden nuggets, leveraging your network outside of just your own work to benefit your employees. I think tying things to life goals, it makes things so much more simple and like action oriented rather than like, oh, I'm just looking for a
Yeah.
raise or I'm just looking to, I don't know, buy a car or whatever. But like big epic goals, and home ownership right now, especially in LA. Oh my Lord.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, those
It's
are
an
like
upward battle.
epic
Yeah.
goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
But knowing that that's what your employees, are looking for, you can then lead them that way. And so I think, if you're listening to the show, I mean, if you're not sitting down and really understanding what their own life goals, their personal goals, they're looking to get married, or they're looking to send their kid to college, or they're looking to buy a home, like what are those like big things? Because then you can tie, something which is maybe drudgery or just day in, day out, to like some big goal. It's going to take a while. So you're not going to just like want that dopamine hit like right away because the real world doesn't work that way. You got to like
Yeah.
earn, save up, build up, you got to see that path. So
Yeah.
that's a great tip. Um, when
Yeah.
you're thinking about all your other ventures, I mean, you've always mentioned kind of like plumbing is always the backbone, but what does your other ventures? What does the world of Trevor look like, and how does that benefit the world of plumbing?
Yeah. I mean, I think the plumbing, is and will most likely always be the backbone, the fundamental driver of all of my entrepreneurial endeavors. And it was moving into, well, the first place I actually started to expand into entrepreneurship was into general construction. And that was like a lead generation that was happening within Lords of Plumbing that was just natural. It was just, you're in a person's home, you're doing their plumbing, and they say to you, hey, I want to renovate my kitchen. Or, hey, do you know somebody who can do this? And for the longest time, we say, oh, yeah, I got a buddy. And I tell the guys, hey, refer this guy, refer that guy. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait, let's just refer ourselves. Let's expand upon what we already have and work and keep it all in house. And that kind of sparked something in me. It's sparking that, like, okay, our expertise is in homes. So how can we just kind
Mm-hmm.
of expand within that realm and offer more and more services for people in their homes? And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, it's when I look back at plumbing, I always say, hey man, that it was the foundation of everything I have built, and all these other businesses into all the way up into development where I've done property development. Um, and it really is, I am definitely grateful for it. I never there I would say this, there was in my youth a time where every business owner will do this. Well, they'll question, hey, is this really what I want to do when I'm older? Is this really what I want to do?
Yeah.
Well, I think I have some advice for that. And it's not about it's not about you have to do this one thing for the rest of your life. It's that this can be something that will enable you to do whatever you want, like once you've
Mm-hmm.
built it up. So if you're a plumber or an HVAC or an electrician and you're like, well, I've always wanted to do this. Yeah, you can build a kick-ass business and you can do whatever you want. That's my advice when it comes to that. And that's plumbing for me. for sure.
Yeah. And that's great advice too, because when you think about it, you want to get to a state where you can have a business where you're able to do other things, whether it's to try to increase that business, or like in your case, you've had kind of the business at somewhat a similar size, running profitably, running really well, and then that allows you to do lots of other types of things where there's interest. And then the other
Right.
golden nugget, for those that are listening, is just when you have that customer relationship built and you have that trust, what other services can you offer? And are there things that you could potentially offer that you're just not doing right now? Because the hardest thing is to find that customer and earn the trust of that customer. If you've got a good customer, it's way easier to do more work for them than it is to go find your next customer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And way more expensive, and way
Yeah.
less profitable to do it that way. So yeah, if you can get in
Hmm.
the home and do good work, that customers are going to keep coming to you. Now, obviously, if you sub things out and you play the role of a GC, maybe you can make a percentage of percent. But honestly, if you end up doing more and more things in house, you can just wrap it into a much bigger package than your competitor can and offer much more than your competitor can, which is just, doing tankless water heaters, which is cool. And you
Yeah.
can build a business on just tankless.
Yep.
You can build an amazing business that way. Or you can expand, much wider. So different ways to run a business. But I love this model too, because it allows you to work with people you actually like, and establish
Yeah.
long-term relationships with. And
Right.
long-term too, if you're looking to build a profitable business, most of the most profitable jobs come from word of mouth because that trust is
Hmm.
already there. And, as a homeowner, I don't know the quality of your welds. All I know is that
Yeah.
it holds up well. My buddy said it worked great for them. And so, okay, maybe I'll have them do some more things and some more things and some more things.
Right.
Because
Yep.
the risk is high that I hire someone else that doesn't know what they're doing. And
Yeah.
then, stick with
Yeah.
what you
Keep
know.
it with the people you know.
I like it. You said you have like a little bit of background in being an early tech adopter and all the things.
Yeah.
Earlier, just when we are on call, you're like, oh, you know what? There was this like DOS based program, I was using back in the day,
Yeah. Yeah.
Service Sidekick, and I tried some other ones like Service Make. What did that path look like? Like, why did you think technology was so key in the beginning that you were using like these older programs? Granted, like that was all that could exist and everything was on-prem. There was no cloud-based software, but
Yeah.
like, what was your mindset that took you down? Like, I need this.
In all honesty, I think it was I couldn't afford to hire the other people, the other people that I needed to run the business. So I needed to figure out a way of how to run the business, um, and how to kind of,
Hmm.
I mean, early automation, right? Early automating different practices within the business, or different jobs within the business to make it easier for me. I was still in a van, I was still out running calls, and I had stacks of paperwork, stacks of invoices, and things everywhere. And the guys would show up on Fridays and they'd have stacks of their paperwork and they would hand it to me and I'd be going through it. And I'm like, man, I really have to get organized. And,
Hmm. Hmm.
I just started to research. I was like, QuickBooks, those high level accounting softwares, they're too robust and too specific. I needed something that was like a day to day operational
Yep.
something I could have. And so there was a few companies out there and I grabbed a hold of them and started to kind of implement them into the business, and they became, it became something that I couldn't live without. And so that's
Yeah.
kind of what led me all the way to Housecall Pro in the end. And Housecall Pro, we've grown with it and we've used it. We use it. It's integral to our everyday kind of business now.
Hmm.
I don't think we could live without it. So it's like,
What made you go,
it's,
out of curiosity, what made you go from ServiceMate, which is, it's good
yeah.
software, but like, what was that point where you're like, okay, no, now I need like a little, like, what was that transition for? Because I think there's other people that are listening to the podcast too that might be using something else. But what was that one thing you were like really looking for where you're like, okay, now I'm gonna make a switch. I'm
Yeah.
gonna transition all my data, migrate all my customers. I'm gonna feel some pain for long-term gain. Like, what was that? What was that moment, and
Yeah.
why did you do that?
I mean, I think it was probably a direct component of House Call Pro that we
Mm-hmm.
needed. And I think it was like, literally, I was like, how do we, and maybe it was the dispatch at the time that we didn't have. So it was the features of being able to have like an integrated dispatch. I think the earlier versions were simply, kind of, they were specific accounting. So it was like, okay, you can, you can run your invoicing, you can do this and that, estimating.
Yeah.
But House Call Pro, when we found that, we were like, okay, well, this offers the next level, which was,
Mhm.
the stuff that was gonna give the customer a better experience in the end, which was,
Yeah.
for me, really is where it has to lie. I have to be like, hey, the customers are number one. Don't ever forget that. Because when it's
Mhm.
lean, you're going to be wishing you had those customers. And I'm like, how do I serve them the best way possible? And things
Yep.
like being able, them being able to be messaged when we're on our way, and all of those integrated components were useful. I mean, granted, you have to do the work for them to be useful. You have to do the data entry. You have to be, train your CSR, train your people in the office how to use it. But once they
Yep.
do get down the routine, it's like, I mean, literally, it's what allowed me. I'll say this. This is a kudos to Housecall Pro, honestly. And I wasn't even planning to say this, but like what allowed me to be an entrepreneur, what allowed me to break away and do all these other businesses was being able to hands off, uh, take my hands off the reins a little bit. And the software just allowed me to do it. It was like, okay, now I don't have to like
Mhm.
sit there and pine over every customer and every review and this and that. It's going to be automated. And that's,
Yeah.
allowed me to expand my life.
Yeah, and I think another good thing that you mentioned here is, you got to get good data in. And so it is what you
Hmm.
put into it. And I think early on, a lot of people maybe don't have their systems in place around like, are they tagging lead sources? Are they tagging job types? Business units, if you happen to do like, plumbing, heating, electrical,
Yep.
multi-trade. And so, and if you don't get the good data in, and then later on, you're like, I want to run a report. Oh no, I can't run reporting. The reporting is terrible. It's like, well,
Yeah.
you know, if
Yeah.
you're not
Yeah.
tagging the things, you can only do a certain amount of data manipulation,
Right.
before you have to go backwards in time and have an office admin or yourself just some nights and weekends go back and retag some stuff. And then you'll be able to
Right.
reconstruct your data. But I think some people don't learn that until they're a little bit later down the path. But I agree with you. If you want good data out, you got to get good data in. Just like
Yep.
anything in life, you got to put a little extra
Yeah.
work in. But once you
Yeah.
do it, like you said, you've got the system in place, and now you can do a little more hands off. Where it's like good data's coming in, and I can just look at the reports and kind of run my business like that.
Hmm. Yeah. The reporting, to touch base on what you just said, the reporting is like the reporting is the second half of your journey with the software. When you can, you're getting somewhere when you're actually using the reporting side of the software and you're making, actionable decisions on what you're seeing. And when you start to get that data and you're like, okay, Jim is not is there's he's not selling, or he's not closing. He's not, his ratio is way down. You can say, hey, are you charging too much? My guys are out doing their own. They have prices they work off in the price book that we built in Housecall Pro, but
Mhm.
they also have the ability to build those estimates themselves. And I go, hey, I think you're a little too high because you're at a 60% win ratio here in your estimates. We need to figure out what's going on, and I know you're a
Mhm.
likable guy, so it's not because people don't like you. So I think maybe it's your pricing. And when you can use those reports,
Mhm.
that's like a game changer. Honestly, that's like, you're like, wait, I'm a business person now, man. I'm looking at reports. This is good.
Yeah,
Like,
you're like looking at numbers. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people will still go on to the community and be like, I can't figure out the reporting. I can't dial it in. Like, how much time
Yeah.
do you spend like making sure it's set up correctly? Is it just something that you've done over the years? Is there like a light bulb moment? Like, what advice would you give someone that's like, I just can't get reporting to work, or I need something much
Yeah.
more than this for my reporting? Like, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would say be specific and do it in increments. Like, decide on what report is most important to you and
Mhm.
work to make that report work for you. Like, work to make it really good, and then move on to the next thing. If you try to do it all at once, the data, you may make a mistake and you're just going to be overwhelmed. But if you pick, like, start with your ratio, your estimate, your win ratio on your estimates,
Mhm.
and look back and be like, that's a good thing. I mean, that's going to tell you if your pricing is good. That's going to tell you if that's going to give you a lot of information that you can look back on and say, hey, wow, I think our pricing is way off, or this guy
Yeah.
is just, I'm feeding this guy $1 million in leads and he's closing, 50 grand. Something's not right here. Like, what do I
Hmm.
need to do? That's
Hmm.
that's where I would start, and then go even more granular, at that point. Like, um, look at the time it's taking for these guys to get from point A to point B and how long they're on the jobs, and get your
Callback
averages all down.
rates.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
totally. Yeah, and
Definitely.
I think that's really good advice. I feel like a lot of people are like, I want all the KPIs all at once, but it's like, well, the KPI really is meant you're supposed to have a handful because you can't
Yeah.
get people to change 20 different behaviors. But if
Mm-mm.
it's just close rate, and that's what we're focused on this month, we can talk about everyone's close rates. Everyone's like, well, isn't close rate supposed to be high as possible? I'm like, no, because I can have a 100% close rate in your plumbing business by giving everything away for $1, and I guarantee you
Yeah.
everything's going to sell. Okay.
Right.
So like
Yeah.
100% close rate is not good, right?
Right.
Because
Exactly.
and in the same way, a too low close rate is also bad because you could be the most likable, but you could be way mispriced. And so I think therein lies a balance, but you won't know what's sort of like steady state if you don't have kind of that previous data to go back of. Um,
Yeah.
and so can you get
Yeah.
to the point where you are 50 to 60% and then make sure that the net profit you're making on the jobs is high? And then if you have
Right.
that, now you're doing great profitable jobs. You're pricing pretty much there where half the people are saying yes, half the people are saying no. But every job you do makes you a lot of money. Okay, that's like worthwhile every time. Because remember, there's way more demand than there is supply, which means there's way more people wanting good plumbers than there are good plumbers, or insert your
Yeah.
trade here, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Definitely.
you've got a system now to where you can check that out. So
Yeah. It's helpful.
spend time. You got to dial that in. What would
Mm-hmm.
you say? What would you say, knowing everything you know now? Rewind the tape to 6 years, 6 years ago when you first set up
Mm-hmm.
Housecall Pro. What is besides reporting now? Like what's something to be like? Oh man, we got to get that going from day one. What's something, a feature, an add-on,
Hmm.
something that Housecall Pro does where you're like, oh man, I should have just used that from day one. I just didn't know about it until a year ago or now or whatever.
Yeah, I think a good feature to get right into, not during initial setup, but I think pipeline. We use pipeline
Mm.
quite a bit too, and I use pipeline quite a bit. So if you're the business owner or a higher level person, even actually honestly, even your salespeople or CSR can look, but you can get a quick kind of overview on where you're at in where the jobs are at. Whether you're
Mhm.
doing larger ticket items or smaller ticket items, you can look at it as like, okay, where are we at in the sales process? Or for me, I can look at it on a high level and say, oh, these people owe us money. Why is there so many jobs that are, finished, and why are they not collected? Or it
Mm.
use the pipeline for your kind of that stack of papers that you used to have on your desk,
Yeah,
you know?
moving it like across your desk, they like migrate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
that's and use the pipeline is your virtual pile of papers, and you don't need to sift through it anymore. You can kind of scroll through it and see what's going on, and you can direct people the way you want to direct them, or go through
Yeah.
yourself and call all those people that owe you money and be like, hey, dude,
Okay.
it's time to yeah, yeah. So
Totally.
yeah, we really like pipeline.
Yeah, pipeline's great for people that don't know what we're talking about here, but it's technically called a Kanban board, is like the official like dorky nerdy name for it. But it's
Mhm.
essentially if you have a whiteboard and you've got folders hanging on the whiteboard and you move pieces of paper and invoices kind of from like left to right, and it's sort of
Mhm.
like a funnel in a way, and they make different stops along the way until they're completely paid, finished, checked off, like all the things. But in between, you can set up automations. So if there's estimates you've given that you haven't followed up on, or your sales guy hasn't, set up those estimate follow-ups, and it'll automatically remind those customers every N days, however long or whatever. But if you're doing a couple estimates a day and you've been doing them for a month in summertime and you're producing too, that stuff falls through the cracks and you're going to forget. And so, I mean, pipeline will pay for itself infinitely effectively the second you close one job
Yeah.
for it, just based on the
Yeah.
cost of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, just that organization, ability to see everything very simply, and then moving things from left to right is a really good practice to get into. And yeah, maybe not when you first set it up, but once you get some volume of jobs in there, it's going to help. If you just have one job in there, you can track it with your mind super easy. You're going to be like, well, I don't need this thing. The second you
Yeah.
get, 10 jobs, a couple of guys doing a couple jobs a day, and just really quickly adds up. Before you know
Yeah.
it, you're just looking at the calendar isn't enough,
Yeah.
because
No.
you lose track of things.
hmm Yeah. It's a great way to kind of keep track of everything in one place. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this interview is going way more than normal, but do you have like one piece of life advice, maybe something you would tell baby Trevor back in the day, moving from East Coast to West Coast, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, wanting to jump on a wave? What would you tell him?
I think I'd tell him to just stick with it, hang in there. And the reason I say that is because, you know, rewind all the way back to little young Trevor who was working for this guy, John Henry, on the East Coast, me and him in a van. He did tell me way back then, he said, if you do this, if you commit yourself to plumbing, he's like, you'll never go hungry. And he was right. He was so correct in saying that. And it really, there was times when I wanted, the business got so hard and it got so difficult and I wanted to just go in another direction or give up, hit all of those things. But you gotta, it does take guts. It does take grit. Nothing is, you're not going to make money you're not going to become a millionaire overnight. You have to become a millionaire, you have to really, you have to fight for it and you have to be professional, make good lifestyle choices. So I think I just tell myself to hang in there and keep making good choices because that's I think what has gotten me this far, really.
That's great advice. I love it. Thank you so much for all the golden nuggets. We'll have to do
Absolutely.
another recording a year from now and see what else you've learned because these are great. For everyone that's
Yeah.
listening, if you're not using Housecall Pro, if you want to check it out, you can go to housecallpro.com/podcast deal. You can always text me direct, 858-215-1512. I'll connect you with someone on my team based on what you need. But yeah, if you text me, I'll get you connected. And Trevor, once again, thank you for coming on the show, one of our super pros. And stay tuned for next week. If you like this, I'll have another episode. All right. See you all later. Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks.
The Superpro podcast is brought to you by Housecall Pro, the leading platform for the home service industry. Housecall Pro streamlines your workflows and simplifies everything from scheduling and dispatching to communication and billing. Unlock the full potential of your home service business with Housecall Pro. Work smarter and more efficiently with streamlined workflows and detailed analytics. Win more business and serve your customers well, every single time. Join more than 40,000 home service pros who have already revolutionized their businesses. Work smarter with streamlined workflows, get organized with centralized information, and scale your business your way. Learn more at housecallpro.com.